Hello my dear viewers. Jason, your favorite storyteller, is here again to bring you another story that will make you go sorry what. Get cozy and let's dive right in. Having grown up on a farm, I realized that if I wanted to see more of the world than a trip to the local tractor parts supply store, I was going to have to join the military. Although we weren't dirt poor, we weren't lower middle class either. My mother made my clothes and we never took vacations. Manually loading and stacking bales of hay, straw, and alfalfa occupied most of my day from age 7 on up. When I graduated high school, against our parents' wishes, my best friend and I spent 4 years in the Marines. We spent time at 2 bases stateside, but ended up being stationed in South Korea and Japan. I felt comfortable being around shorter people because I was only 5 feet 7 inches myself, short but stout. Because of the cultural differences, we were encouraged to spend most of our leave time at specific American-friendly bars and entertainment. My friend, Hal, and I visited as many tourist attractions as possible, knowing we'd never have another opportunity to see them again. I spent half of my money on the ladies and tried to send the other half back home. Hal had to be treated for the clap several times. I opted for the safer route of condoms and was spared STDs. We engaged in all of the extracurricular activities that interested us, including the many varied contests that my fellow Marines could dream up. By the time we were honorably discharged, everyone called me Army, even though my name is Calvin Bostic. When we returned home, Hal continued calling me Army and it stuck. The locals picked up on the moniker thinking it to be a slight to my service in the Marines. I never corrected them. In the service, I learned to ignore slights. Belford, our farming town, didn't afford many employment opportunities outside of farming or construction. I didn't want to live far from my mom and pop. I'd seen the world and wanted to settle down. Since I grew up in farming, I decided to opt for construction. I was a laborer and worked hard loading and unloading everything from bricks, blocks, sheetrock, trusses, and, of course, stud lumber. I was sent to deliver and hand stack loads in locations where fork trucks couldn't negotiate. No stranger to hard work, I could go all day and never wear out. Sure, I'd fade at the end of the day, take a shower and take it easy throwing back a few beers with my friends. When I first met Stacy at Higgins' restaurant, it was love at first sight. She was the sexiest looking girl I'd ever seen, and I'd seen my fair share. I must have asked her out 30 times before she said yes. I think she did it to get me to stop asking. We hit it off famously. We got along like 2 peas in a pod. 2 more compatible people were unimaginable. She has it all: looks, personality, humor, and boy did she have curves in the right places, and knew how to use them. After 9 months of steady dating, I popped the question. We were married 6 months later. Stacy and I were both 24 and couldn't be happier. We talked about starting a family, but we agreed to save up a nest egg of enough money to afford a child, without putting an excessive strain on our limited incomes. By the time we paid our apartment rent and met our monthly expenses, we were nearly tapped out. We basically lived hand to mouth. Somerville, the 3rd largest city in our state, was 40 miles away from our Belford hometown. Kensington is a growing bedroom community in which many Somerville commuters live. Kensington, only 22 miles away from Belford, was adding new businesses to serve the growing needs of its residents. One such establishment was Stokes Fitness Palace, a co-ed gym that catered to the fitness of both men and women. Army, you aren't going to believe the exciting news I heard today. Oh? Are they having another sale at the dollar store? I joked. No, silly. My friend, Brenda, had lunch at the restaurant today, and she told me about a new fitness gym opening over in Kensington. They're interviewing potential hires for the next week or so. She was told the starting pay for the new recruits. Honey, if they hire me, I'll be making about 30% more than what I bring home in wages and tips from the restaurant. I could make close to what you bring home. Isn't that wonderful? She declared. We can start setting money aside for our family. I want us to finally have that baby we planned on for so long. I hear what you're saying, but what do you know about fitness and gyms? Wouldn't you need some kind of degree or something? I don't know what the requirements are for any of these positions, and I'll never know unless I go for an interview. Connie said she'd come in early and cover for me so I can go to Stokes Fitness Palace for an interview, and I'll stay over a couple of hours and cover for her this evening. Brenda said she heard that they take walk-ins, no appointments necessary. Honey, I don't suppose it would hurt to find out what kind of job opportunities they're offering, and there aren't many other prospects here in Belford. If you were to get the job, you'd have to commute the distance every workday. I wouldn't get my hopes up, but sure, give it a try. After work the next day. You aren't going to believe this, Army, but they offered me a job. At Stokes Fitness Palace in Kensington that you told me about. Yes. They're going to start me at 25% more than I'm making now, and after a 2-week performance evaluation, they'll up it to 30% more just as Brenda said. That almost sounds too good to be true. What is it exactly that you'll be doing for them, Stacy? That's the best part, Army. They have their own in-house on-the-job training program. They'll teach me about all of their machines and strength training equipment. Once I'm up to speed, they'll make me a floor manager. I'll help anyone inexperienced with the equipment. They said that, over time, if I apply myself, I could become a trainer, which could add another 20% to my salary. Isn't that wonderful? Stacy excitedly declared. When do they want you to start? I told them I'd need to give at least a 1-week notice at the restaurant. I don't want to leave them in a bind. They said that would be fine with them. Are you still okay with this, Army? It looks like we'll be able to start setting more money aside now to grow our family. As soon as you think we can afford it, I want to have your baby, honey, Stacy cooed. Nothing would please me more, I assured. At first, Stacy wore conservative attire to her new job, conventional pants with colorful button tops. After a month, she purchased 5 pairs of yoga pants with matching halter tops. She said her attire needed to be reflective of the gym atmosphere. I could understand that. 3 months later, she began wearing spandex short shorts. I didn't like that because I could see her camel toe. She just blew me off as being overprotective and showed me pictures taken in the gym, proving that all of the other girls were dressing just like her. She even started receiving cash tips from some of the guys that she helped in various ways. To calm my fears, I took off work early one day and dropped by Stokes Fitness Palace unannounced. I watched her closely for a couple of minutes before she recognized me and rushed over to greet me. She was not doing anything inappropriate or flirtatious that would cause me to worry. Hi, baby. What are you doing here? She enthused. I just wanted to see where my wife works. This is a very nice facility. I'm impressed. I'm tickled that you stopped by, Army. Come on, let me introduce you to my supervisor, she insisted. She walked me over to a hulk of a man. Gerald. This is my husband, Calvin Bostic. Everybody calls him Army. Army. This is Gerald Jenkins. Everybody calls him Goliath for obvious reasons. As we shook hands, Goliath tried to intimidate me with his grip without being overtly obvious. He was strong as an ox, but I didn't flinch. He was easily 6'2" to my 5'9". I knew my weight to be 175 stocky pounds, and estimated his to be at least 245 pounds of lean muscle mass. He was ripped, an obvious bodybuilder, a perfect advertisement for the fitness center. We both smiled effusively for Stacy's sake. Someone called him away, so Stacy gave me the grand tour and explained much of their operations. I did see 2 of their female coworkers who were dressed similarly to her. I'm glad I stopped by. It eased my mind considerably. Not long after that encounter, Stacy began coming home with an elevated libido. We were having raucous sex nearly every night. She attributed her augmented appetite to her workouts, fitness, and healthier eating habits. She'd lost some fat and replaced it with muscle. Not wanting to look a gift horse in the mouth, I accepted her new libidinous energy with equal enthusiasm, which typically left us breathless after every coupling. She never mentioned any of the guys she worked with, not even Goliath, which I took as a good sign. Then came the day that changed our lives forever. Friday night, Stacy brought up a change in her schedule. Honey, I know I don't usually work weekends, but they're having a big promotion going on at the gym tomorrow, and they need all hands on deck. There's a very special event taking place at 7 p.m. It's a special function not open to the general public, but they want all spouses to be present. I want to show you off to everyone as my husband. Will you make it a special point to be there? Please. Pretty please. She asked, batting her eyes at me in her coquettish manner. What kind of promotion, Stacy? You know I'm not going to sign up for one of their programs. I get plenty of exercise making deliveries. I promise, they're not going to try to sign you up for anything. Well, what is it, then? Are you getting an award or something? Could be, she said evasively. After this promotional event, we may be able to start growing our family sooner rather than later. You'll just have to come to find out. I'm not at liberty to say anything more. Well, I reckon I'll be there then, and see what the big deal is that you're talking about. That night, she wore us both out so exhaustively I could hardly move. She had already left when I woke up Saturday morning. I called my buddy Hal, and spent a chunk of the day helping him work on his car. He was always doing something to it to sport it up a bit or increase the horsepower. I told him about my conversation with Stacy about tonight's mysterious event. I shared with him that my spidey senses were tingling, but I couldn't put my finger on anything. Hey, man, Hal began, why don't I come with you tonight to have your back if you have any concerns? And on top of that, come on in the house and let me show you my latest gadget I won in a poker game a couple of weeks ago. It's a compacting pen voice recorder. It records up to 70 hours on a single charge. It has a built-in USB adapter to download the recordings. A twist on the top turns it on. It writes perfectly as a pen, so no one is the wiser. A buddy of mine who lost it to me in the poker game got it to record his girlfriend's os as they had sex. I've tested it. It picks up clear audio for about 40 feet away. Wow, this is like a spy gadget. I don't think it will be needed, but it won't hurt to have it on me just in case. Thanks, Hal. The two of us showed up at the Stokes Fitness Palace a few minutes before 7. A burly man came to the door asking for ID. I showed him my driver's license, and he nodded his approval. When Hal moved to enter with me, the guy stopped him and said, "Sorry bud, this is a closed event and you're not invited, only Mr. Bostic." I looked the guy in the eye and said, "No problem. Come on Hal, let's go. If you can't get in, then I can't either. Hey bud, be sure and tell Stacy Bostic that her husband tried," as we started walking back to Hal's car. "Don't leave, sir. You're a VIP guest." "Alright, we'll let your friend in. Come on. But I'll need to collect your cell phones before you enter." As I said, this is a private event, and no recordings or photos are allowed. We reluctantly handed him our phones, and he slid them into individual manila envelopes and marked them with our names. They'll be returned to you upon leaving the premises. For your security and protection, these envelopes will remain sealed until they're returned. He locked the door behind us as we walked into the main gym. We saw 2 large tables with peg handles on top in the center of the gym, with a large group of men standing around, working out, or warming up for something. Our escort asked Hal to wait in the gym while he conducted me to an office where Stacy was waiting. I nodded to Hal that I was okay. He relaxed and started wandering around the gym. We entered an office and the door was closed behind us. I saw Gerald Goliath Jenkins seated at a table across from me. Stacy was at his side wearing a dark robe of some kind. 5 other guys suddenly appeared behind me who had been waiting for my appearance. "Hey, Stacy, what's going on? Why are you in a robe and not your regular clothes?" I asked. Stacy looked nervously over at Goliath after my question, and he nodded at her before commanding, "Show him." Stacy, almost shaking, demanded, "Do you swear he won't remember a thing?" "Not a single thing." "I swear it on my life, sweet pea. Go ahead and show him." Stacy removed her robe, leaving her wearing the most nothing bikini bathing suit I had ever seen in my life. There were 3 postage stamp size pieces of fabric barely clinging to her body by thin spaghetti straps. There was virtually nothing left to the imagination. "Stacy, I asked you to tell me what's going on. Why are you nearly naked in this room in front of all these men? Have you been cheating on me? Is this your way of rubbing it in my face?" I heatedly asked. "Army, it's not what you think. Well, it sort of is, but it's not really. Honey, it's wonderful. After tonight, we'll finally have plenty of money to get started on our family. We won't have to wait any longer to begin making babies. That's what this is all about, really. I'm doing this for us." "What are you talking about, Stacy? Put your clothes back on and let's leave this place right now. Come on." As I reached to take her hand, Goliath stood up and moved in front of her. "I'm afraid I can't allow that, Army. Stacy's here for the night. You'll get her back safe and sound tomorrow, but tonight she belongs here, and there's nothing you can do to stop it," he announced haughtily. "The hell I can't," but as I moved to grab her away, the 5 guys that were behind me quickly surrounded me and held me firmly in place. "Don't hurt him," Stacy shouted. "If so much as a hair on his head is harmed, then the deal is off." Goliath acknowledged her remark and nodded at the boys to be careful with me. "Why don't I bring you up to speed, Army? What did you do in the Army, anyway?" "I was never in the Army. I served in the Marines. I was nicknamed Army." "Why the hell did they do that? Did your buddies think you weren't good enough for the Marines?" He chuckled. "Somebody better tell me what's going on here or there's going to be hell to pay," I yelled. Okay, Army. I hear you. Well, here's the deal. I like your little wife Stacy here quite a bit. I've been flirting heavily with her for a good while trying to get into her panties, but she just won't give it up. We've done a lot of passionate kissing and making out. I know I sent her home horny as hell on many occasions, but she refused to let me sample the goods. I've talked to her extensively about what it would take. When she shared with me that you two were trying to build a nest egg to grow your family, I gave it some thought and came up with an idea. I told her I could put out some feelers for an arm wrestling contest. If I could get enough interest, she could split the pot with the winner, if the winner was also guaranteed a full night of passion with her. She rejected the idea at first, but over time began asking me questions about the amount of money I was talking about, and how many contestants there might be. I knew I had her hooked then. I just had to develop the specifics of my plan. Goliath continued, I knew she was just as hot for me as I was for her. I told her that if she worked with me, she might walk away with $20,000 and get to share a night of passion with me. She asked me how we could do that. I asked her to make a nude masturbation video at home alone that I could show to potential contestants to garner their interest in competing both for the cash prize and a night with her. The entry fee was set at $1,000. When enough people showed sufficient interest, I began setting it up. But there was still one problem. The cheating angle continued bothering her too much, so I had another brainstorm. I asked her, what if you, Army, had the opportunity to compete as well? If you miraculously won, then she wouldn't be called upon to provide the night of passion, and you two would walk away with all of the money. The slim potential that you could stop her was enough to convince her to consider it. Goliath took a sip of water and continued. She still had the sticking point that you would never allow such a thing to take place without it adversely affecting your marriage, perhaps even ending it. The girl loves you, I'll give her that. So I came up with a solution for that too. After you lose and the contest is over, these 5 boys here will bring you back to this office and get you stone drunk. Then they'll give you a dose of ketamine, a drug used by veterinarians as anesthesia for horses and other animals. People found that it works great as a date rape drug, because not only does it erase your memory for about 24 hours, but it also quickly metabolizes in the body, and can be difficult to detect with drug tests. Street names for it are Special K, Cat Valium, or Kit Kat. That's why I can tell you everything honestly with impunity, because you won't remember a single word spoken to you tonight. Nothing, nada, zip. So, there are 40 men signed up to compete for the cash prize and a night with your wife. I'm the strongest man in this building by far. I've let them all think they have an equal chance of winning, but they don't have a prayer. I'm going to win the 40 grand, split it with Stacy, and duck her every which way all night long, while you're getting drunk and forgetful. You'll be taking home tomorrow to sleep it off. I'll drop your wife off at your home after I simply can't get it up another time. When you eventually wake up, she'll tell you how she won $20,000 in a contest, and you two lovebirds can start making babies to your heart's delight. You won't remember a thing, she'll have her money, and I'll have done my best to wear out her kitty all night long. You just made a big mistake, Gerald, I cajoled. Oh yeah? What's that? He smirked. You just told these 5 goons your plan, so why would they have any interest in detaining me now? I inquired. It's a fair question, he surmised. These 5 know better than anyone else that they stand no chance against me. So they've already been paid in full in advance by your lovely wife here to look after you and make sure everything goes according to plan, so they will not be competing tonight. Stacy paid them. I puzzled. That's right, chump, the guy to my immediate left blurted. She gave all 5 of us blue jobs earlier today. I truly envy you, Army. Your wife really knows how to suck cock. I'm thinking about hiring her to teach my wife how to do it as she did, he goaded. Stacy gave me a wan smile as I asked, is that true? Did you give all 5 of these guys blue jobs before I arrived? She had the good sense to look down at the floor, rather than lie to me. Sorry to disappoint you fellows. I have zero interest in competing in any event or winning anything, especially anything to do with her. You can have her. Do whatever you want with her. I'm out of here, I seethed as I attempted to leave. I'm afraid we can't let you do that, Army, Goliath repeated. A deal's a deal. I gave your wife my word that you would arm wrestle the winner of tonight's contest for the money in her honor. Then I promised her you'd have no memories of anything said and done tonight. The slut has no honor. I no longer care who she ducks, sucks, or for how long. Right now, I want nothing more than to divorce the backstabbing witch as soon as possible. Stacy began sobbing at my harsh language and sentiments. Pay no attention to anything he says, Stacy. Like I told you, he'll have no recollection tomorrow. He'll be your ever-loving hubby once again. You have my word, Goliath reassured. Stacy smiled weakly at his encouragement in the wake of my stinging threat to divorce her. Enough chit-chat. Let's get out there and get things started, shall we? Goliath insisted. The group of 5 forcibly marched me out into the gym. When the contestants saw my wife's virtually nude body, they went wild with applause and catcalls. I looked around, and couldn't see my friend Hal. Where is he? I queried. Your friend? He decided not to hang around after all. We didn't want to force him to stay, so we let him leave. Sorry, one of the 5 informed. I knew Hal hadn't left of his own free will. They coerced him to leave. I also knew he wouldn't abandon me. I knew he must be parked somewhere nearby. He was my ride. Goliath was wearing a light jacket to conceal his overabundant musculature. He didn't want to overtly intimidate any of the contestants, and erase their hopes of pulling a rabbit out of a hat. He began to address the crowd. Alright, everybody. This is what we've all been waiting for. All 40 of us have contributed our $1,000 entry fee and signed the rules, disclaimers, and waiver sheet. Stokes Fitness Palace will be held harmless in the event of any injuries related to this contest. This is a double elimination competition. If you lose once, you still have another chance to compete and win the tournament. The best 2 out of 3 wins. If you have 2 losses, you're out. Now our girl, Stacy here, wants a fair and square contest. She insisted that her husband, Army, also be given a shot at defending her virtue. He will wait and wrestle the number 1 contender. When he loses, the winner takes all. Does everyone understand and agree? All of the men nodded acknowledgement. Excellent, he continued. The winner will receive the title trophy and the $40,000 bounty, but each of us has already agreed to split the winnings with our girl, Stacy, here. She'll receive 20 grand regardless of who wins, and the winner gets an all-night love fest with her. You've all seen her video. Some lucky guy is going to be in for the night of his life. Everyone was rip-roaring and yelling their enthusiasm for the contest, while Stacy wiggled and writhed her body seductively for their benefit. We have 2 very distinguished gentlemen with us here tonight. Mr. Justin Albright and Mr. Kevin Saunders are sanctioned referees for the World Arm Wrestling Federation, and they are going to officiate every contest tonight. They are impartial and their word is final, not to be questioned. We have 2 arm wrestling tables with hand pegs that will be running simultaneously to speed things along. The hand pegs are there to give you more power and leverage. 2 matches at a time will allow each man here a fair chance to win. We have a computer random name generator pair up and set the first 20 matches. All results will be recorded, and the computer will then create the second set of pairings and so forth, and so on until we get down to the final 2. If you've been eliminated from the competition, you are encouraged to stay and root for your buddies during their matches. The 2 arm wrestling tables were identical and were designed for standing matches, not seated. They had padded elbow pads where each competitor places their elbow down to wrestle to avoid discomfort and to prevent injury. The touch pads are the raised pads on opposite sides of the table that each respective competitor is trying to push his opponent's hand onto. A projector casts the paired names up on a screen from an overhead projector. The order was easily discernible and clear for all participants involved. The 2 tables were approximately 10 feet apart. Stacy stood between the tables and made a last-minute announcement. Hey, fellas. I wish each and every one of you the best of luck tonight. And just to prove I mean business, right before you compete, if you need a little extra encouragement, each of you is free to give my melons a little squeeze for good luck, she giggled. The guys whooped and hollered some more. The first 4 contestants took her up on her offer, each feeling up her melons in turn, then they set themselves to the match. The referees repeated all of the rules for each contest to ensure compliance. When they asked ready, each man nodded his acknowledgement. When they said, go, it was on. You never heard such moans and groans as each man gave his all to win over each opponent. Everyone who was not competing at the time was cheering on those who were. It was an enthusiastic melee. I sat and watched my wife in disgust as she freely let other men play with her melons that I had mistakenly believed to be mine and mine alone. There was a cauldron boiling deep in my soul over the betrayal and humiliation at her brazen shamelessness. With 2 matches taking place simultaneously in under 3 minutes, the first round was completed in under 30 minutes. The second round, which allowed double elimination, took another half hour, so after the first hour, half of the contestants had been eliminated. The remaining 20 were soon matched up by the computer in random pairings. Stacy decided to make it even more interesting for the remaining contestants. She allowed feel-ups of her crotch and boobs alike as encouragement for the remaining contenders. Every single man took advantage of it. It was sickening to watch her being pawed and mauled. She, however, seemed to love the attention and encouraged each man to help himself. After 5 more matches took place over the next 15 minutes, there were 10 winners and losers. Another quarter hour narrowed the field down to only 10 final contestants, as an hour and a half had expired by this time. Testosterone flooded the room, fueled by machismo, prize money, and a highly anticipated night of passion with my wife. The atmosphere was palpable. I sat down disgusted in a chair at one side of the gym away from the action. Stacy kept looking my way and urging me to join the fray, but every time she beckoned me, I simply turned my head to the side, ignoring her. The 5 lugs never left my side. Had I attempted to run for the door, I knew I wouldn't have made it 5 feet. The next 30 minutes whittled down the contestants to the semi-final pairing. Of course, all contestants kissed and liberally groped Stacy, helping themselves to all her goods with their hands. Ultimately, it was Goliath versus another heavily muscled man for the semi-final match. Goliath handily won the set, leaving him to be the one I would face, exactly as he had predicted. The referees advised Goliath that he could take 15 minutes to rest and recover, before having to face off with me in the final match. He laughed them off, indicating that I was an insignificant gnat to him, and he required no recovery time to face me. His victory was a given. Goliath nodded at the 5, who escorted me to the table for the final. The referees stood ready to officiate the final match of the night to declare a clear winner. As I reluctantly stood there across the table from this behemoth of a man, it was evident that not a single man in the room gave me any chance whatsoever to come out on top. They were smirking and chuckling in acknowledgement that Stacy was Goliath's prize, and they envied the sensuous pleasures he would come to know about my wife. As I stood before the table, the room finally quietened down and I began to speak. "Where is the 40 grand in prize money?" "I want to see it," I asked. "Why do you want to see it, little man?" "You don't have a chance in hell at winning it," Goliath bragged. "That may be so," I affirmed. "However, everyone here has been using my wife for inspiration before their match. I simply want to see the money for mine." "That doesn't violate any rules, does it?" I queried. "I guess not, little man." He nodded at one of the 5 who disappeared into the office to retrieve the lockbox holding the cash. He opened it so I could see. "So far, so good. Could one of the referees quickly count it to ensure it's all there?" Goliath nodded again. "Mr. Albright, would you please do the honors?" Referee Justin Albright picked up, quickly sorted, and confirmed the total of $40,000. "Sir," I requested, "if you don't mind, I'd like it if you hold on to that until the end of the finals, so it can be awarded immediately." Justin looked at Goliath who said, "Go ahead. Your reputation is impeccable. We trust you completely," whereupon Justin held the 2-inch thick neat stack of $100 bills close to his body for security. "Satisfied, Army?" Goliath smirked. "Completely," I verified. "Good. Enough delay. Let's get this nothing of a match over with so I can start ducking your wife. Come here, sweetheart. Give me another sample of that sweet honeypot that's going to be all mine in just a few minutes," he boasted. Stacy came over to him and gave him the most passionate French kiss I'd ever seen her deliver. Her hands gingerly massaged his crotch in front of the whole room, as Goliath pulled her top down and suckled her melons right in front of me. I had never been so enraged and humiliated in all my life. After he had his fill of Stacy's temptations, she moved toward me to inspire me in the same way. I stopped her dead in her tracks. In a clear voice, I admonished, "Don't ever touch me again, Stacy. Maybe, tomorrow, I won't remember anything that happened tonight, but I hope you never forget what I'm about to say for the rest of your life. 20 grand for a night of unbridled sex with you might make you an expensive whore, but it makes you a whore nonetheless. You're nothing more than a cheating slut who, if I had my way, I'd divorce your peach right here and now. You disgust me. Get your skanky peach behind me so I don't have to look at you. That way, Gerald can see his whore for inspiration, and I don't have to look at you. Just the sight of you makes me want to vomit all over your lover boy here." Stacy began sobbing loudly at my vehement vitriol. Every man in the building became inflamed with anger at my hurtful invectives toward the sex kitten they'd come to lust after. As she moved behind me in compliance with my request, Goliath defended his prize for the night. "Just who the hell do you think you are? You can't talk to her like that," he commanded. "She used to be my wife, but if I have the physical and mental capacity to correct that mistake when I leave this building, she won't be my wife any longer. Then she can duck all 40 of you and have all of your babies for all I care. I used to love her, but now I hate her even more. She sure as hell won't be bearing any of my children." I raged. The room became strangely silent in bewilderment at my statements, but all sentiments were still squarely in Stacy's corner. "Enough of your big talk, little man. Put your arm up here and I'll put you in your place and shut that mouth of yours," Goliath commanded. Everyone effusively cheered Goliath's bravado, knowing he would deliver on that promise. Knowing I had no other choice, I put my comparatively small arm up on the table against the mass of muscle Goliath presented me. We locked hands tightly, making sure there would be no slips or tricks. Referee Kevin Saunders revisited the rules one last time before signaling the start. I heard Stacy behind me admonish Goliath not to hurt me. If he had his way, I'm sure he would have broken my arm. However, he knew she would be unhappy with him if any harm came to me, so he told her he'd let me think I had a chance. I was pushing for all I was worth. Our hands didn't budge. It was as if I was pushing against a piece of steel. He asked a friend to call 30 seconds, which seemed an interminable time. Then he loudly boasted, "I'm going to give you an education in muscle therapy, little man." He grinned and began pressing my hand inexorably toward the table. My hand and wrist trembled like a leaf in his grip as I resisted the downward arc with all my might. It wasn't enough. As if in slow motion, my wrist hit the padded bar as the referee called the match in Goliath's favor. The room erupted in thunderous applause at his success against a bad sport-mouthy husband. I stepped away from the table for a few seconds as I did some deep breathing and swung my arms as I shook off the loss. "Best 2 out of 3, I reminded as I immediately placed my arm back on the table. Goliath laughed in my face. "You obviously don't know shit about muscles, little man. Quick performing muscles are anaerobic. All the deep breathing in the world won't save you from certain defeat. By the time I'm through ducking your wife all night, her kitty will be too sore to touch for a week. I promise you she'll earn every penny of that 20,000. The room once again erupted in roaring approval of Goliath's claim. His statements only served to anger me more. Kevin provided instructions again and signaled us to begin. Goliath had a huge smile on his face. I again was pressing against him for all I was worth. I used a peg and swiveled my hips for maximum leverage against him. After about 10 seconds, he began his press down to secure his final victory. My hand shook like a leaf once more, trembling as every ounce of adrenaline fueled my strength. He had forced me about a quarter of the way down when I felt something. It was a strange sensation. It was as if he had reached the end of his tether. My arm stopped shaking and locked solidly onto his mission. I groaned out loud as I gave it my all. I was huffing and puffing like a runner during a marathon. Then it happened. His hand gave quarter as my stamina relentlessly pressed against his limited reserve. An unbelieving crowd grew silent as they watched me press Goliath's hand down toward his side of the table. I could almost feel the gas emptying out of his tank as he became weaker against the endurance my arm provided. When the referee slapped his hand acknowledging the pin, you could have heard a pin drop on the floor. The astonishment was unparalleled. He jumped back from the table in disbelief. "No," he shouted. "There's no way in hell he beat me. That was just a fluke. You're going down, boy. I'm going to squash you like a bug. No more playing around. Let's do this," he ordered. He tossed his jacket aside and took both hands to rip his t-shirt off his torso. His musculature gleamed in the light as all the facets of his ripped abs and shoulder muscles became the envy of every man in the room. Goliath drew his arms back like the Incredible Hulk and growled out his rage at the embarrassing loss. He slammed his elbows solidly down on the table, calling me out for the final match. One of us was about to suffer his second loss and ultimate defeat. He was bound and determined for it to be me. I ignored his antics. I had seen this kind of bluster many times before. Again, I performed my deep breathing exercises to enrich the oxygen levels in my blood before accepting the big man's challenge. I wanted this next match sooner rather than later before allowing him the opportunity to build his reserve. Kevin performed his professional duties and called the start. I knew Goliath's anger would compel him to give his first effort his all to prevent a recurrence of my aberrant victory. He roared out in rage, shoving my arm with all of his energy in one go. All I needed to do was keep my arm from going all the way down and wait him out. My wrist was about an inch from being pinned. My hand and wrist again shook like a leaf, trembling against his massive effort. It was all I could do to hold my own against his surge. Then I heard a voice call out from behind me. "Come on, Goliath. Take him down. Show the boy who the real man is here. Finish him so I can get you between my legs. Finish him. Do it now," Stacy urged. The crowd went wild at Stacy's boldness and lust-filled encouragement. But Stacy didn't count on what effect her words would have on me. Enraged, my body was infused again with a fresh hit of adrenaline. Coupled with my regularly paced breathing, I gave a deep groan as a fresh burst of energy overcame the impasse we had been at for nearly 45 seconds. Our hands slowly rose and began moving in the opposite direction. I felt his arm give once more as I solidly locked in my relentless pressure. Our hands went over the top and headed down toward putting the back of his hand in the direction it didn't want to go. He growled and twisted his body more, trying to obtain an ounce more torque from his leverage to no avail. With all the reserve I had to give, I shoved his wrist against the padded mat as Kevin announced my victory. I did it. I defeated Goliath 2 times out of 3. It was over at last. Silence pervaded as Goliath asked in astonishment, "How? How in the hell did you do that? I've never lost to anyone as small as you. I've got to know," he pleaded. "I'll answer your question if you give me your word on 2 conditions," I offered. "Name it," he conceded. "Number 1, I'm handed the winnings before I give my answer, the entire 40 grand. Secondly, I want to walk out of here after my explanation under my own steam, with no one trying to stop me. Do I have your word?" I stipulated. Goliath nodded his assent. "Go ahead and hand over the money, Justin." He handed me the cash, and I quickly stuffed the stack of bills in my pants pocket. It required some effort, but I managed it. I want everyone here to know that Mr. Bostic has won this contest fair and square. Whether we like it or not, he is not to be touched. After he provides his explanation, he will be free to leave here unhampered, Goliath asserted. Stacy just stood there in shocked silence. Reassured, I decided to fill everyone in. All my life, I've either worked on a farm or in construction. I have dealt with heavy loads day in and day out. I've done this nearly non-stop all of my life. I may not have developed well-defined bulging muscles in my arms as many others here have, but what muscles I developed gave me endurance and stamina in addition to strength. When I joined the Marines, I was stationed for a couple of years with the 12th Marine Regiment located at Camp Hansen, Okinawa, Japan, and also at Camp Mujik Marine Corps installation in South Korea just outside Pohang near the eastern shoreline. We were encouraged not to mix too heavily with the locals due to cultural differences. They recommended sticking close to facilities friendly to the Marines. That being the case, we became very inventive in developing creative ways to pass time with a lot of testosterone pervading the base, much like it is here tonight. Arm wrestling soon became a popular activity to mitigate stress and boredom. We soon developed weight classes, but over time, we wanted to see the best of each weight class go up against the best of heavier classes to see how far we could go. After a year of arm wrestling, I had never lost a match. One of the base doctors gave me a special examination to determine how I was able to win against opponents nearly twice my size. He surmised that my arms were primarily served by aerobic slow twitch muscles. People like you, who lift heavy weights for short bursts, develop fast twitch muscles which give great bursts of energy for short periods. My arms might not be as strong as many others, but I have endurance and stamina. My arms can go all day long as I breathe and provide the oxygen they require. The way I won against you was not by sheer strength, but by outlasting you as your anaerobic muscles began running out of gas. Even though I was in the Marines, they nicknamed me Army for 2 reasons. The word Army means strong, and I also gained notoriety for my arm. So there you have it. I've given you my explanation, now I'll take my leave and let you guys get on with whatever else it is you wish to do tonight. I quietly stood and began walking toward the door. No one made a move or spoke a word. They were still in shock. Then Stacy called out to me. "Honey, this is wonderful. Hold on and I'll drive us home," she pleaded. "I'll wait outside. Go put some clothes on before going home," I responded. She took my remark as a sign of encouragement. I meant for it to be nothing more than a delay tactic, to buy me time to get away. She quickly rushed to the office to change back into her regular clothing, while I rushed outside to look for Hal. When he saw me, he flashed his lights. I knew he wouldn't leave me in the lurch. As I was hurrying over to his car, I saw the group of 5 walking out of the building, scanning the parking lot for me. They soon began running in my direction. Hal decided not to wait around and peeled away from the scene, burning rubber. I had miraculously made my escape with my memories of the night still intact. "I swear I didn't leave you in there alone, Army," Hal informed. Several big lugs forced me out the door and tossed my cell phone out on the ground. They told me it was a closed event, and I had not been extended a proper invitation. So I waited for you, all night if need be. From the looks of those guys on your heels, it didn't appear to be a friendly approach. I knew you'd be there for me, Hal. I was counting on you, I iterated. I've always got your back, man, you know that. So what's the story, and where do you want me to take you? He asked. Take me to my place, I urged. Then I proceeded to explain all of the events of the night. Hal was shocked beyond measure. He expressed his disbelief that Stacy would ever betray me the way she had done. And the drug angle was over the top. He simply shook his head at her egregious betrayal. I explained that my cell phone had been left at the gym. I didn't want to waste any time trying to retrieve it, and since I don't have it, no one, especially Stacy, can use it to contact me, which was a good thing. What do you want me to do? Hal asked as he pulled in front of my place. How about parking behind my building? I imagine Stacy will be along shortly. If she comes alone, I'll talk to her as I'm packing. I'm hoping you'll let me hang out at your place for a day or 2 until I get my bearings. Of course, you can. You don't even need to ask, but all I have is a spare couch to offer you in my small apartment. The couch will be perfect, Hal, thanks. If Stacy comes home alone before I leave, I'll confront her tonight and make my intentions clear. If she brings any of the thugs with her, I'll slip out the back door and escape with you to your place. Got it, Hal blurted as he parked out of sight behind the building. I had 2 suitcases packed and was zipping up the second one as Stacy ran inside to me. Thank God you're here. I was worried sick you'd be gone when I arrived, the penitent woman exclaimed. Are you here alone? Or are the 5 clocks you sucked to earlier somewhere nearby? I demanded. No one else is coming, Army, she winced. It's just you and me. I want to apologize for my behavior earlier tonight. I was caught up in the excitement of it all. I was hoping against hope that you'd win, but I had to play both sides of the fence, so we would end up with at least 20 grand to finance the start of our family. You were amazing. You put Goliath in his place and showed all of them what you're made of. You saved me from a night of debauchery, baby. Now the entire 40,000 is ours, and I'm so happy to be your love slave for the entire night, rather than having to submit to someone else. That's not how I remember it, Stacy. I'm sure I heard you say, come on Goliath. Take him down. Show the boy who the real man is here. Finish him so I can get you between my legs. Finish him. Do it now. She had the good sense to look at the floor for a moment. As I said, I was playing both sides of the fence. Funny, I don't recall you ever cheering on my side of the fence. Well, from now on, you can play their side of the fence for the rest of your life. Once we're divorced, you can duck and suck all the man you want with no objection from me, I seethed. Divorce? You can't be serious. All of this tonight was about us getting enough money to kickstart our family. I want to have your babies, Army, not Goliath's, not anyone else's, yours. This was only going to be a one-and-done event, Army. Goliath swore that you had no chance to win it, and that you'd have no memory of any of it by morning. Yes, divorce. You should have considered the possibility before going down the path you chose with those duckheads. You cheated on me, Stacy. You sucked off 5 guys today and I wasn't one of them. And to make your betrayal worse, you were perfectly fine with having me held against my will and drugged. It's crystal clear to me now that I married the wrong woman. I did not cheat on you. I never had sex with anyone. Oral doesn't count as sex. Really? So you're saying it would be perfectly okay if I gave 5 women oral loss, and it would be perfectly okay with you? You can call it whatever the hell you want to, Stacy, but I call it cheating. You were unfaithful to our marriage and to your wedding vows. And the only reason you aren't getting ducked by Sheethead is that he lost the arm wrestling match to me. Otherwise, you'd have him between your legs right now all night long, while the sheetheads attached to the 5 decks you sucked off would have dragged me into a stupor and made me forget everything. I will never trust you again for the rest of my life. We will never have a child together, even if you had $1 million. Divorce is the only way forward for me. I will accept nothing less, I fumed. She began sobbing uncontrollably. No. You can't mean that. You're just upset right now. I will never give up on us, Army. We belong together forever. We belong apart forever. I am so glad we're parting ways before we had a baby. Having to deal with the likes of you during the child's life would disgust me. Suddenly there was a knock at the front door. Why don't you go see who it is, sweetheart? Stacy sweetly asked. I don't give a duck who it is. I just want to be away from this place and you, I asserted. That's okay, I'll go see who it is, she sweetly offered. Of course, I knew who it was. I'm sure the 5 thugs were coming to finish the job that they had been commissioned to do, and I wasn't going to hang around and let them finish. I quietly slipped out the back door with my 2 bags and hurried over to Hal's car. That was a bullet dodge. I spent the night on Hal's couch. He was armed and ready to defend his abode should it be required. Sunday morning, I paid for 2 fairly inexpensive round-trip flights to Las Vegas. Hal and I hit several betting venues in Sin City. We collected all of the failed discarded betting receipts that we could find on the floor and in trash cans. Even though I wouldn't need it all, we didn't stop until we had close to $40,000 worth. Once Stacy realized that I was serious about divorcing her, I felt certain that she would come after the money, at least on a 50-50 shared basis. I wasn't going to allow her to profit from her slutty whoring ways. Perhaps all of her duck buddies signed an agreement to split the winnings with her, but I never did. I called off work for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I felt that I needed to move quickly. I visited the first attorney who could see me on short notice. Lincoln Price advised that the simple divorce I wanted would cost in the neighborhood of $4,000 to $4,500. I paid him $5,000 in cash and asked for a receipt. I advised him that the extra tip I was paying him was for the stellar service I knew he would be giving me. Money talks, and I felt good that I had a shark on my hands. He said he could have her served at the gym on Tuesday afternoon. The sooner the better. We only had 2 credit cards and they were in both of our names, so I cancelled them both. Fortunately, neither of them had a balance. The amounts we had in checking and savings weren't worth fighting over in my estimation, so I left them untouched, but I did open up a new bank account in my name alone, and asked HR to direct deposit my checks into the new account from now on. I did call and cancel service on my phone. It was a relief to inhibit her access to me. I did pick up a burner phone for temporary use until I decided what I was going to do. The number was shared only with those I trusted, namely Hal and my parents. Tuesday, I went apartment hunting. I located a decent affordable unit near my place of employment. My parents would have gladly taken me in, but I'm too independent to return home now. They were shocked to learn of Stacy's antics. I didn't tell them everything, only that she had decided to provide others with sexual favors, and I could not abide that. They were very disappointed in her and understood my reason for leaving her. I did ask another favor of my friend Hal. On Wednesday, we used his pickup truck to move my belongings from my former home shared with Stacy to my new place during the day, so I wouldn't have to interact with her. I wanted all communications to go through Lincoln, my attorney. That didn't work as I had hoped. She must have followed me from work one day because, within 30 seconds of arriving at my new apartment, she came knocking at my door. After 10 minutes of non-stop door banging, I finally let her in. Whatever it is that you want to say, Stacy, get it over with and get out. I'm about to fix some supper and you're not invited. Why did you have me serve divorce papers? I told you I was going to do it, and why? Don't waste my time asking questions you know the answers to. I told you why I did what I did. I did it for us. Maybe I went about it all wrong, I admit that, but never, not for 1 second, did I expect this to blow up in my face the way it has. Okay, thanks. I heard what you said, now you can leave, I urge. Please, Army, 30 minutes, give me 30 minutes, and if you still want me to leave after that, I will. I gave her a look of perspicacity as I placed a blank sheet of paper and a pen in front of her. I'll give you 30 minutes if you'll give me something first as a show of good faith. Of course, Army. Name it, she offered. I want the names, addresses, and marital status of the 5 guys you sucked off. Plus, I want Elias' home address as well as his marital status. You provide me that information and you can have your 30 minutes, I tendered. I can't do that, Army, she shrank. Anything but that. I'm afraid that you'll go after them and it won't end well for you. I can't take the chance that you might get in trouble over this. I see. Well, since you seem compelled to make unilateral decisions for my well-being, I will do the same for you. You need to leave right now, Stacy, because if you don't, I can't be responsible for your well-being. I can't take the chance. Now go and don't darken my door again, I forcefully emphasized. But Army, go. It was clear that protecting her lovers or intimate partners was more important than reconciling our relationship, because she left without saying another word, just silent tears. At least I was hopeful for a temporary reprieve from her unrealistic expectations. Lincoln, my attorney, notified me that Stacy had engaged her own legal representation who, being friends with a judge, managed to get the judge to require that I attend a minimum of 8 couples counseling sessions with an aim toward reconciliation, even without a hearing. Lincoln was surprised that the judge would do this, but judges are extended tremendous latitude with divorce cases. We live in a very conservative community that eschews divorce. Lincoln at least managed to wrangle my choice of counselor. He recommended 2 who he believed would be impartial and fair. I chose the male counselor to moderate the 90-minute sessions. At the first session, after listening to Stacy's apology for our misunderstanding and plea that nothing had taken place, she was belligerent that nothing had happened, and my accusations were based upon my jealous mind, due to the nice men who work at the gym with her. After hearing that load of crap, my part was instantly easier. Rather than call her a liar or advance further accusations, I decided to take a different approach. I confessed that I had fallen out of love with her, and couldn't bear the thought of spending another day in her presence. I told her and the counselor that I thought she was anorexic and ugly, and that any children we may have had would have looked hideous. I played the shallow card, saying that any love I once held for her had turned into hate. She sobbed loudly at these new revelations, completely denying my expressed feelings. Although startled, the counselor admonished Stacy about the impropriety of denying my feelings. During the second session, I was asked what it was that I disliked about Stacy specifically, so she could have target areas to work on to improve our relationship. I told her she'd have to have extensive plastic surgery on her face, completely changing her appearance, along with changing her hair color to long flowing red. I said she has the body of a 16-year-old babysitter, and I feel as though she wants me to be intimate with a teenager. I advised her to gain 50 pounds, and then we'd talk. The counselor argued against my offensive position, and suggested that most men would appreciate Stacy's fitness level. I then offered that all of those other men were more than welcome to her. At our third session, he asked us to make a list of any of the attributes or characteristics that we liked about the other or found attractive in some way. I made a mockery of the exercise by listing a single positive attribute. She read off her long list of my wonderfulness, hoping to appeal to my ego. I totally ignored her ravings, and when asked to read what I had written, I told her that the only positive I could come up with was that she politely closed the bathroom door whenever she went to take a dump. They both seemed perturbed at my rudeness. The remainder of our sessions were spent with me convincing them that words do not exist that could convince me to fall in love with her again. I relentlessly reiterated that marrying her was the biggest mistake of my life. When asked what kind of woman appealed to me, I explained that I had my eyes on several Asian women that I might ask out after receiving my divorce. Stacy demanded that I provide her the names and locations of these other women. I simply stated, "You give me the list I asked for, and I'll give you mine." The following week I had the list I'd requested of her. "Alright, Army, I gave you what you asked for. Now it's your turn to return the favor and give me the list of women you were talking about last week." "Fair enough," I said as I sat and compassed the list, and handed it to her. "What the hell?" she asked in confusion. "This is a list of old ladies in their 60s and 70s. And not a single one is Asian," Stacy remarked. "Did you think I said Asian?" "No, silly, I said that I had my eyes on several aging women that I might ask out afterward," I chuckled. "The only Asian woman I know is happily married to Bill Fremont with 3 kids, and she wouldn't give me a second look." I received mixed looks from a perplexed Stacy. On one hand, she seemed relieved that I hadn't demonstrated any interest in another specific woman yet. On the other hand, she was pissed that I had played on her insecurities to coax the requested list from her. This list would save me the time and expense of a PI. Then the onslaught began. Stacy must have engaged in an all-out campaign with every friend or acquaintance I know to persuade me to reconcile and give her another chance. Many of the ones who approached me had been longtime friends that I'd known for years. She even succeeded at convincing my parents to do her bidding, relaying that Stacy had convinced them of her sincere contrition, and that I should seriously consider giving her another chance. I didn't want to lose all of my friends by isolating myself from them or disowning them. I took a slightly more subtle approach by sticking earbuds in my ears every time her name came up in conversation and cranked up the volume. Without saying a word, my message was effectively conveyed repeatedly, and the incidences rapidly abated. She never persuaded Hal, however. He was planted firmly in my camp. The fact that none of the names on the list had been the subject of my physical attack encouraged Stacy that I was beginning to come around and put the hurtful acts behind me or lead to me being jailed. However, the counseling sessions wound down to the final appointment, with no breakthrough to lead to reconciliation. Stacy once again pleaded for me to forgive her and give her one last chance. She delivered a tearful emotional performance that would sway anyone else but me. The counselor then elicited my final response. Stacy, what you gave to those 5 assholes in that sheethead, Gerald, was something precious that I had mistakenly believed was mine and mine alone. Our marriage can never recover from that since you revealed that my belief in your commitment was nothing more than a make-believe fantasy. All I ever had was wishful thinking. I no longer want the type of love you have to offer. I'm sure men will line up to get between your legs. I will not be among them. Good luck with your search. Our marriage is dead. Please let it go. I rose from my chair and left her sobbing while shaking her head. I did not look back. As suspected, her ire was raised by my constant rejection. She had her attorney appeal for the legal revelation of all financial assets, specifically the 40 grand. She was requesting half of it. Through my attorney, I furnished a 5 grand receipt for his divorce services, receipts totaling $1,000 for mine, and Hal's trip to Las Vegas, including airfare, taxi service, and meals, as well as $34,000 worth of receipts of lost bets for that same day. The entire 40 grand was legally accounted for. She and her attorney protested that I shouldn't have blown her half, to which my attorney reminded everyone that the money had been spent before she was served divorce papers, therefore the total winnings were mine to do with as I pleased. As a gesture of goodwill, I instructed Lincoln to allow her to keep all of the small amounts in our checking and savings accounts. It made her feel as though she had won in some small way against me. She would never learn that I was still sitting on most of the winnings. Our divorce hearing was set for 2 weeks hence. I felt that the timing was right for my next move. Through courier services, I had copies of the audio recordings delivered to the wives of 4 of the thugs who had received blue jobs from Stacy. The 5th guy was unmarried but had a girlfriend. I provided details of the events of that night, and asked them to think back if their guy had made arrangements to be out all night that particular night for evidentiary confirmation. The girls could confirm with Stacy if they wished her to substantiate the blue jobs. I heard that 3 of the 5 were kicked out of the home for an indeterminate period, but no relationships were permanently severed. They convinced their partners that all they did was receive a blue job, and never reciprocated with Stacy in any way. It was all one-sided. I also ensured that Gerald Goliath Jenkins' wife received a copy of the unedited audio recordings as well. He was my primary target because the entire contest idea and suggestion that I be drugged and memory wiped was solely his. Apparently, he had been unfaithful twice before. The 3rd time's the charm, as they say. She'd forgiven him in the past due to their 2 small children. She wasn't about to repeat that mistake. The divorce decree of Calvin Bostic versus Stacy Bostic was finally granted. Alimony was not required because of Stacy's income at the gym. I was glad of that. Immediately after the divorce was finalized, Lincoln advised me that I can't sue the gym for reparations, as they do not have a no fraternization policy. Therefore I did the next best thing I could think of. I went to the local press and detailed my entire story from beginning to end, naming names. The specter of publicity surrounding the contest and negative opinion fallout induced Stokes Fitness Palace to relieve Goliath and Stacy of their jobs. I realized that I probably would be the cause of them throwing in together, but such things were no longer of any concern to me. As it turned out, Goliath urgently wanted to reconcile with his wife. He loves his kids almost as much as he loves playing the field. Much like Stacy did to me, he swore to his wife that he'd not had sex yet with Stacy, though he couldn't defend against the recordings that my winning the arm wrestling contest was the only reason he hadn't. He tried to convince her that he intentionally threw the contest because he couldn't go through with it. He knew that if he had anything more to do with Stacy, his wife would never reconsider his position, so he ceased all contact with Stacy cold turkey. Stacy returned to waitressing at Higgins' restaurant. I had always been a good tipper when I frequented the establishment, and the girls would fight over where I would be seated too. I continued to tip generously when being served there. Stacy tried to talk with me a few times, but I ignored her. She soon got the message. The other girls didn't want her to drive me away as a regular customer. Hal nervously approached me one day, advising me that it was time to get out of my shell and start living again. The loss of companionship had been keenly felt if I was honest with myself. He told me that he was setting me up for a blind date this coming Saturday night. How could I refuse my best friend who had stuck with me through thick and thin? I owed him courtesy and respect, and reluctantly agreed to his request this one time. Before parting, he asked me if he could borrow $1,000. Without hesitation, I agreed and offered more if he needed it. After all, he'd saved my hide that night at the gym, and has provided friendship support every day since then. As I handed him the cash, I told him it was a gift and not a loan. I didn't want to receive a penny back. He gave me a funny smile as he walked away. He'd been evasive and secretive whenever I made any inquiries about the date. He asked me to show up at his house at 7 p.m. Saturday, dressed casually, where he'd greet me at the door and introduce me to my blind date. He said that his girlfriend, Melinda, was as heavily involved and excited as he was. Melinda was a great girl, and I honestly had no idea why they had not married yet. They were a perfect match if ever there was one. I donned my newest casual clothes and made the well-traveled trip to Hal's place. There were quite a few cars parked all around, but conspicuously, there was one open parking spot right in his driveway which he waved me over to park in. We did a bro hug and he eagerly led me into his abode. Nothing was going on in the house that I could sense, but Hal led me downstairs into his basement. I heard some shushing right before we walked into his basement pool room where he and I had spent many hours. I was shocked to see 10 or more very attractive ladies all wearing bathrobes. I recognized a few of the ladies from grade school, some of whom I had not seen in years. "Hi ladies," I nervously chimed. "Hi, Army," they tried to reply in unison in smiling sing-song voices as melodically as could be. "What's going on here? Are all of you beauties my blind date?" I chuckled. The woman just giggled back at me as Hal took the floor. "Not exactly, Army. I seriously doubt you could handle all of these lovelies at once," he commiserated. Melinda helped Hal with the next part. "Okay, girls. It's time for the big reveal and parade. Let's start our stuff for the champion," she instructed. The girls, apparently having practiced before my arrival, all doffed their robes and set them aside. I counted 12 beautiful women standing before me in conservative classy one-piece swimsuits. The swimsuits were revealing enough for me to appreciate the shapes and curves of each one, yet were not slutty in any way. I was immediately impressed. This was mildly reminiscent of Stacy's disrobing to reveal her slutty postage stamp micro bikini. But these ladies were 100 times classier than Stacy had been that night. Hal began again. "Army, all of these girls are aware of what happened to you and how you humiliated Goliath that night at the gym. So you're a kind of folk hero to them. They know that you're a free agent now, so Melinda and I did some brainstorming and came up with what we believe is a fantastic idea. She and I handpicked every woman you see here tonight. They're all single, none of them are in a committed relationship, and each one is a vision of beauty as you can see. Melinda and I recruited these girls to participate in an arm wrestling competition tonight. This is more of a fun competition than a fierce one. No one here tonight is a bodybuilder or weightlifter. They're all fit and take care of themselves, but everyone here expects nothing more than to have a load of fun." Hal continued, "They're here for 3 reasons. 1. To have fun, 2. To win some cash prizes, and 3. To be your blind date for the night. The top cash prize for the overall winner is $500, second place, $200, third, $70, fourth, $50, and fifth place wins $40. Everyone else placing 6th through 12th will take home $20 apiece, mainly to cover gas costs. So the total cash outlay for tonight's event is $1,000 total. By the way, thank you for sponsoring this event." "That was very kind of you," Hal chuckled. I replied, "I knew you were up to something, I just had no idea what it was." Hal announced, "Okay ladies, all of you know the scoop about tonight. But everything is a surprise to our friend, Army, so if you'll indulge me, I'd like to explain how this will work to him. Army, this is to be a double elimination contest, like those that you are accustomed to. We'd like for you to start each match, and Melinda will referee and call each winner. During the course of the arm wrestling matches, the girls will get to see you and know you a bit better. Once the overall winner has been established, she has the option of being your blind date for the night, but she is in no way obligated to follow through. Sometimes the chemistry isn't there, and we place no pressure on any of the ladies here tonight. If the first place winner opts out, then the second place has a shot, and so forth and so on. Honestly, from the way they're all looking at you as a delicacy, I don't think that will be a problem, he chuckled. I was game for the experience. I certainly was no stranger to arm wrestling, and this would be a fun way to secure a blind date. No one had a clue who the winner would be, least of all me. Hal was right, each lady was vivacious and attractive. I had no idea that 12 women were available for dating in our area, so this was a very pleasant surprise. There was a table set up for arm wrestling adjacent to the pool table. Hal had assigned each contestant a number and used a random number generator to select the matches. The ladies would be seated on opposite sides of the table. I linked their hands together in proper form and held them straight on centered between them before calling, go. Melinda and Hal were right. This was a barrel of fun. It was all light-hearted, and even the losers were laughing and enjoying the camaraderie. Each of the girls asked me for a peck on the cheek for good luck, and I was only too happy to oblige. The winner was determined in less than 30 minutes. Bobby Sue Baker was awarded the $500 top prize for competing. Bobby Sue looked remarkably like Hannah Jeter, the actress. Seeing her in her modest one-piece swimsuit was a feast for my eyes. After accepting her plastic trophy and the cash prize, she nervously looked over at me. Well, Army, I've never asked a man out on a date before, so this is new territory for me. I'd be honored to be your blind date tonight if you're up to it, she uttered. I graciously accept your generous offer, Bobby Sue. I look forward to us both getting to know one another better. She smiled and gave me a peck on the cheek. Let me go change out of this swimsuit right quickly and we can go wherever you want to take me. Hal and Melinda vouch for you in the strongest terms, and that's good enough for me. While Bobby Sue was changing, 7 other girls came up to me, reminded me of their names, handed me a card with their contact information on it, and told me to call them if it didn't work out with Bobby Sue. I treated Bobby Sue to a very nice dinner and a movie for our first date, as the rest of the girls had a party with Hal and Melinda playing pool. As one might surmise, Bobby Sue and I hit it off from the get-go. She nicely filled the gap left by Stacy. Over time we had many discussions about fidelity. Her previous boyfriend had 2-timed her as well, so we both keenly felt the aftermath of cheating and betrayal. Bobby Sue Baker became Bobby Sue Bostic. She worked as a stenographer in our county seat court and was well respected. Since I still had most of my winnings from the 40 grand contest, we decided not to wait to start having children. Within 5 years we had one of each. We still frequented Higgins' restaurant, and Stacy continued to waitress there. I'd see tears form in her eyes as she watched the family that should have been hers lovingly enjoy themselves. That's it for today's story, my friends. Don't forget to like and subscribe before you leave, and I'll see you in the next video.